All right, so we know that motivation and inspiration are both fleeting, right? Like we can't rely on these things every second of the day. I mean, some people are probably walking around more inspired or have more inspired moments or more motivated and more motivating moments than others. But for the most part, we don't get to be motivated and super inspired every single second of every single day. So we can't rely on this stuff. So what do? How do we actually get our mind focused on what we need to get it focused on to be able to succeed at what we're trying to do? You know, this is going to be some ways that some tactical ways that we can actually do that. I mean, you're starting out with a good positive attitude is going to go a long way, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get to your goal. Being focused doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get to your goal, because there are certain things in our subconscious that are literally stopping us from getting what we want. Okay? Otherwise, everybody would be walking around with what they want. So, and your subconscious always trumps your conscience. We don't get much control over that. So our conscience is kind of at the whim of our subconscious until we become conscious of all of the things that are in our way. You know, and most of us are blind to those, so we're trying to wake up to them. Now, how your mind works is that it's based on two different scenarios, okay? And on one side, you've got your absolute best, all right? You're gonna be all in with you. You're focused. It's when you are kind of like in sports. It's when you're in the zone, you know. Or there's this new term going around that you're in the flow, which is kind of interesting. But okay, so you've got that on one side. Now the other side is the one that gets kind of cliche, but it's absolutely real. It's that you're afraid of not being enough. You see this in sports when I actually write cursive. I realize how awful it is. Any of you teachers out there can deal with it. All right, the fear of not being enough is where anxiety is. Anxiety is actually a symptom of the fear of not being enough. So is anger. So is guilt, so is embarrassment, so is stress, lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem. These are all symptoms of the fear of not being enough. A lot of people will be like, well, I already know that I'm enough. Well, yeah, but your subconscious doesn't. See, and your subconscious trumps your conscience. So, and you can't even see that this is what's happening. And you found these fear reasonable over and over and over again because society sold you on the idea. You're bought in. You know, we've got to uproot this a little bit. Anxiety is just forgetting how to do something you know how to do. You know, a baseball player gets in the batter's box. He has done thousands of swings before in his life. All of a sudden, he forgets how to swing. You know, when you were in college or in high school and you wanted to go talk to the pretty girl, well, you know how to talk. Why did you forget how to talk when you went up and talked to the pretty girl? You got scared. You forgot how to do something you know how to do. You got scared that you weren't enough. That's subconscious talk. That's subconscious stuff going on, and it's deep rooted. Okay? Anger is the same thing. Anger is a psychological display to distance yourself from anyone else seeing that you're afraid. To go back to the baseball player, let's say the baseball player struck out after he got anxious, and so he gets even more scared, throws his helmet, throws this huge fit to push people away, even though it's psychological. It makes sense in the you know, a lot of things make sense when you're scared. You know, you're watching a scary movie, you're like, why would someone do that? Well, they would do that because they're scared. You are thinking rationally, you're thinking reasonably, you're thinking logically. Watching the movie, you're not in the movie being scared to death. All right, so baseball player throws his helmet, tries to psychologically push people away. What actually happens? When you get scared, you actually bring more of that fear to you. That's what happens when you get scared. You actually attract more of what you didn't want. So what happens with the fear of not being enough? You get more anger, you get more anxiety, you get more embarrassment, you get more stress, you get less and less confident, less and less self-esteem, and pretty soon, so those are all symptoms. You know, now the thing is, are you going to find this reasonable or unreasonable? Because the person who finds the fear reasonable will get more of that fear. And if you justify your anger, doing that self-righteous thing. This is one of my favorite ones. This is what I go to. You justify your self-righteous anger, and then 2 hours later, you're like, wow, I'm such an idiot, right? You found that fear reasonable. Now, if we can get conscious of that, then we can negotiate this. We can say, is this fear reasonable or unreasonable? We can frame it as a concern. But if we do find it reasonable, say exactly what you're going to do. You're going to become a victim. I just spelled it wrong. You're gonna do the martyr syndrome. You're gonna get lost and confused. You probably feel depressed at some point. You're gonna be negative. It's a very weak position to be from. This is kind of the position of the bully. And really what happens is you miss out on your life because you're too busy dealing with all of this stuff. And so find that feel reasonable. All of a sudden, you're also going to get more of it. It's same thing in nutrition when somebody wants to lose weight, so they say, I'm not going to eat muffins, I'm not going to eat candy, I'm not going to eat bad stuff, right? So they're going to do their absolute best to do that, and then all of a sudden they have this weak moment where they get scared, something happens, they reach for the candy jar, they feel guilty, which is just another fear of not being enough. They feel guilty, they find that fear reasonable, they're like, oh, I'm such a fat piece of crap because I ate that Twinkie, let's say, I don't know, and then they're like, oh, poor me, that they're playing the victim, right? What are they going to get? They're going to get more of that. All right, so we've got to get to a point where we can consciously head this off of the past. We've got to stop the fear before it actually happens. And we're going to do that by negotiating it. We're going to find, is this fear reasonable or is it unreasonable? And if we can find it unreasonable, now we're working on something. Now we can refocus. Now we can say, can I do my absolute gut-wrenching best in this moment, right here, right now, under the circumstances of this moment? Because you might have the flu. You might have just gotten off of a 3-day bender. You might just be tired. You might have 2 weeks of good nutrition and good sleep and good workouts underneath you, so you feel awesome. I don't know, but your very best day might not be the very best that you have at this moment, but it's still all that you have, and you can't do better than your best. I'm talking about your real best here. I'm not talking about your cop-out best that the losers are, oh, I did my best. I'm talking about your absolute gut-wrenching best. If we can do that, then we can refocus. And we can refocus, we can get over to this other side. Okay, but this is the beginning. This is heading off the past. You got to get clear with what you are afraid of. And if you're feeling guilt, you're feeling anger, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling jealousy, envy, you're blaming others, you're reaching for justification. That's what this is. And you got to challenge this. You got to negotiate this. Am I going to find this reasonable or unreasonable? And if you can find it reasonable, you're going to get more of it. If you can find it unreasonable, we got something to work with. Try this out.